In your view, like what should freight professionals be doing now to future-proof their careers?
Treat your own business as a salesperson who's a business. See what improvements you can actually do. In my 20 years, I've never heard anyone say, as a customer, you know what, your price is perfect. One thing that I always say honestly is I'll never preach or teach anything I've never done in my own life. AI is going to come in, but one thing it won't replace is human interaction.
Hallmark of a good salesperson, they're typically just rubbish at admin. They just don't want to do it. You could definitely use it for things like that.
I would want to be one of the best communicators I could be. It doesn't matter what happens in the industry, that's going to be your edge, for sure.
You've been in the industry a long time, right? You've been, I think, over around 20 years or so, starting out in sales roles and then sort of progressing more so into senior leadership and running and managing sales teams across shipping lines and freight forwarders, right? And more recently, you've kind of branched out on your own and set up Blueprint, which is super exciting, and we'll get into that. But I guess for the listeners, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind giving us a bit of an intro on who you are and, your sort of background and where you came from.
So I actually started in the industry when I was about 20 years old in freight industry. I fell in it actually intentional. So I wanted to buy a house. And back then, Seek was just starting out. So there was a thing called a newspaper where all the freight forwarders would list a job. And there was a company called George Turner's, and they were looking for a document runner. And they gave me an opportunity. And then through, I think it was a 6-month period, I thought, this is okay. I'm not going to be a driver forever. DHL gave me an opportunity, and I was there for about 4 or 5 years as a young man. And they actually gave me a lot of opportunities. I grew very quickly. And then my first sales job in industry, I was about 23, quite young, like considering. I was having a coffee at a local coffee store in Keilor, and I was talking to a guy. I thought he was a customs broker, but he was actually the owner of Pacific Network. His name is Paul Milborough, who became an influential mentor of my life in sales. And I got into sales quite young. That's where it started. And on a personal view, I love the freight forwarding industry. I think, if you want to make really good money and you want to have a global network and meet a lot of people, it's such a great opportunity. And I've got an amazing family. And I've just got Blueprint Coaching where I help businesses within this space make more money, essentially. That's what I do. So nice and easy.
Nice. Good stuff. And I see like you're pretty active on LinkedIn and posting and commenting and like sharing your thoughts and insights and stuff like that, which is awesome. How important do you think is personal branding, and like particularly for freight forwarding and shipping in this industry? Do you think it is something that is kind of a must-have now?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I had a lot of imposter syndrome from being kind of vulnerable and honest when I first started posting on LinkedIn. You start to think, what people that you might have worked with in the past perceive about you, and, is your knowledge up to date, or, you start to work out on the outside world. But something that's really served me well in the industry is I started to become more interested in the people I'm trying to help rather than trying to be interesting. So I started focusing on people, and I thought, maybe there's someone who's starting out in industry, wants to get a bit of knowledge. And more importantly, it's a very competitive industry, right? And we all see that price is a problem, or, space is a problem. But what I actually found was when I started really, talking and providing value online, especially at Psaila, I felt a lot of opportunities came my way because people saw the transparency, the honesty about what I was doing. And I wasn't just sharing news, like there's no space in China, like everyone does that. It was all providing like real value. And it's so important. I think if you want to be someone successful in the freight forwarding industry, especially for an SME, that's probably your point of difference against your big boys. So I'm a big believer in it. And that's why I get it before Sam on what you're doing, mate. So I think it's inspiration. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And like, from my point of view, I still think LinkedIn is such an underutilized tool. It can be a little bit misleading sometimes because you log on, and because we're both very active, it's like I sometimes assume that like, everyone's on LinkedIn and everyone's just posting and stuff like that. But actually, like the majority of people are not posting at all, specifically in freight forwarding and shipping. There's so many people that haven't updated LinkedIn for 5 years, or, they don't have their current roles or anything, and I just think that there's such an opportunity there. Is that one thing? Like, do you try and are you sort of telling people that they should get active and kind of start to build that profile and put themselves out there a little bit more?
It's actually interesting. So I've got a new campaign probably starting next week on that, helping freight forwarders develop their LinkedIn profile. So what I've been doing, funny enough, the last couple of weeks is I've got everyone in my network in shipping and logistics, and they've got like no mobile number on there. They've got no company email. And I'm like, you're missing out on so many opportunities. And you made a great point. 90% of us consume what we see on LinkedIn, and only 10% of people produce content. And that's in every industry, not just freight. There's only 10% of the population who actually produce. We're consumers, right? We like to consume. But we live in a world of attention. So if you can be that 10%, your career will blossom. But I'm actually going to be doing a campaign on helping people just have that, I guess, that courage to really change the way they present themselves on LinkedIn. Yeah, definitely.
That's great. That's the opportunity for sure, right? If only 10% are producing, then you want to be part of that. And like for your journey in your career, like you've started, like I said, with some larger shipping lines and forwarders, and worked for the likes of Maersk and A&L, and progressed into senior leadership. Did you have any particular moments that like stood out or kind of really defined your career, or any roles or companies at all?
I want to be transparent here, so when people come on here, they can see, like what can happen in the world. And I was working for one big company, and within the first year, I got let go as a salesperson. And it's probably the only time I've ever been let go in sales. And I think at that first, 3 months or 4 months after I got let go, I was upset at the company and upset at the leadership. And then as maturity sunk in, it was actually that I was the problem within that company. And what I'm trying to communicate here is that we're not all suited to every company. So some people are really great in that corporate space. It might be like a European freight forwarder. In my career, I'm definitely at that medium space where it's still an entrepreneurial opportunity to really grow and all that. So you got to really align your personality and skill set to a freight forwarder. And I think a lot of us get that wrong. And I definitely got it wrong in that place. I'm going to be very honest. I don't want people to make mistakes in that. So if it can be avoided, definitely avoid.
Maybe 3 years ago, I believe you sort of founded Blueprint Coaching. So obviously taking all your learnings and expertise over the last 20 or so years working for various companies. What motivated you? Like, what was the tipping point to go out and start this coaching company?
I believe that sales is one of the most rewarding careers you can have, right? And if money is a very big passion for you, you can make a lot of money in the industry. I've been blessed to make a lot of money and help other people outside of my scope of normal work. And the reason why I started it was I saw a change in the industry where everyone's doing the same thing, everyone's struggling, and I saw a lot of turnover within staff at a lot of organizations. And to Sila's credit, I was there for a very long 4 or 5 years, and I got to learn a lot about the business. And the one thing that we did well there was we honestly had a small team, but we had a lot of like retention there. We didn't really swap staff. And I just felt like helping salespeople and organizations be more aligned. There's expectations that are so different between salespeople and companies. And I just had that call, if you want to call. I don't know if I'm going to do it forever, but I just definitely want to help businesses and people in sales be more aligned. That was the true motivator.
Taking your experience from some of those different companies, what do you think that a lot of it could be forwarders or shipping lines for that matter, but what do you think a lot of them get wrong, particularly when it comes to sales?
Yep. So from a company perspective, I think if I'm going to be again like quite transparent, is the rush to hire and the rush to fire. So I think sometimes you're better off taking the time getting the right candidate, and if you're a candidate, not to rush as well. I think that's a very big one as well. The way that consumers are buying now is totally different too. So you can't just rely on old methods of communicating. If you're not using LinkedIn, maybe it's even a podcast if you're a small to medium freight forwarder, or other tools such as like marketing and online marketing. There's such a big gap at the moment. So when I speak to a lot of smaller to medium forwarders that are struggling against the big boys have such a big brand name, and the only difference that we have as an industry is if you're a small to medium is you as that person. And I think where I'm getting at is freight forwarders don't invest in enough in their personal branding of their sales team. Like if you want to be successful as a small to medium freight forwarder, all your team should be like on LinkedIn. They should be doing something different to stand out. That is the thing that I'm seeing, and there are
Yeah.
a lot of people doing as well.
Yeah, that's a good point because like especially with some of the bigger companies, your tier ones, typically all your importers and exporters, they already know the company that you're working for. You don't really need to explain DHL, Toll, all the big boys, right? Whereas if you're with a small to medium, half the battle is actually explaining your company and your point of difference. So if you can stand out, ultimately people are buying off people. And I think that's even more true for some of the smaller to mid-sized players. So actually putting yourself out there and having that personal brand, I just think it's like a non-negotiable these days, you know?
So the other point I was going to make too is um, if you're a small to medium freight forwarder, where we get it wrong is they're targeting maybe accounts or clients who don't fit their scope of works. So they all want these big ACX listed companies or global companies to come on board, but a lot of global companies have their own requirements, like they can only deal with a European freight forwarder. Some companies are like that, or you can only deal with the company that has a global presence with their own office. And I think all salespeople as well and companies get that wrong. They want the big wins, but if you actually, want to call it like box in that same weight class, you're going to be far more successful than just going out there and trying to, get clients that don't suit your world for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think if you're working for a smaller to mid-sized player, especially with there's been so much consolidation, right, in the market over the last couple of years. Like a lot of the mid-sized players are just getting swallowed up by the big boys. So surely that would create maybe more opportunity for that mid-market or even that smaller size if you are afforded to go after that, because like you say, a lot of people are just looking at the enterprise at the top end of town and trying to compete with your tier ones, right, which you probably can't. So I think you got to play to your strengths and try and play in your lane, so to speak, as well. On that, like when it comes to sales people in particular, are there any particular personality traits actually that you see as a common reoccurring theme in successful salespeople?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's one thing that has always standing out from like the best to the average is the level of hunger. You could be the most talented salesperson, but if someone is, really hungry, they're probably going to outperform that person. That's still something that I really believe in. And I came from an uneducated background. I came from a family that had no money. So for me, my hunger level it's always there and it's still there, right? Even at 41. And I always say to salespeople that if you've got a lot of hunger and can have a bigger why out of work, especially maybe a big why, that's going to get through, especially some of the tough times in sales. That's probably one personality trait. The second biggest one, which is very underrated, is having a growth mindset. So if you're someone who wants to adapt to the changes, you're someone who wants to look after yourself physically, the job is very demanding, right? Like you think about, right, it's sometimes it can be like your whole day or your whole night you're communicating. So you need to be physically and mentally fit and a great communicator.
I would also say discipline as well, because it's good to be motivated, but motivation comes and goes, and discipline is just there all the time, right? Like if you don't want to make 100 calls, you just do it anyway. And I think you don't want to go on the road and make those client visits, those 10 visits a week or 12 visits, whatever it is. Like you just get out there and do it without even thinking about it.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people motivation is just such a short-term thing, but yeah, you have to be disciplined, and that would transfer. Like if you're disciplined in your personal life, if you go to the gym or you work out or you've got your routines, I find that it translates to the working world
Yeah.
as well.
It's actually funny you say that. When I do a lot of workshops with organizations, I always talk about what's happening internally rather than externally first. So
Mm.
if you're self-confident, if you've got a good relationship with your partner at home, your wife or family, you go on gym, you'll tend to find that will be reflected in your work. It
Yeah,
doesn't work vice versa. It works whatever happens in your personal life is usually
yeah,
reflecting what's happening at work. And
yeah.
discipline's massive. If like you said, if you're not willing to make the calls because you're a bit tired. I don't know about you, Sam, but having your own business, we're all tired.
Oh
Whenever,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you've also got to do the work, right?
yeah,
That's so true. So
yeah.
true.
If you want the results, and I think particularly within sales, sales is a very high demanding, stressful industry, but that's also why there's an opportunity to make essentially unlimited money, right? Like it's kind of up to you how much you want to make, but you've got to put in the work for sure.
In the wall.
Because there's no secret, it's been a pretty challenging 12 to 18 months in the industry. Pretty slow. And I'm chatting with a lot of BDMs out there at the moment who are, doing it tough, but sort of chugging along as well. What would you say to the people that are in this current market? It's a bit slow, maybe feeling a bit deflated. How would you, keep them motivated, or how would you motivate someone to keep going?
Yeah, I think again, it's you take out that motivation tool, and this probably applies to any organization, right? I'm a big believer that when times are tough, you can do three things. Number one is you can actually start to look in your business, treat your own business as a salesperson who's your own business, see what improvements you can actually do. It's a great time when you're quiet to, do you implement some AI? Do you change your strategy? Do you change make lanes that you focus on? Like, look, use it as an opportunity rather than just sitting there going, it's quiet. Uh, Number two, when it's actually quiet with volume, it gives you an opportunity to go out and see clients more. So I see it as a great opportunity. If someone goes, I'm quiet, fantastic. That means we've got time to have a chat. These periods are only temporary. As the good times and the bad times, it's all temporary, right? Keep your activity up, continue to do what you would normally do when you're busy, and you'll find if you can survive through this period, you're actually going to come out thriving. And the competition of salespeople will get less and less because people will be like, it's too quiet, I can't handle it, I'm out of here. So stay in there. You might reap the rewards at the end for sure.
It's a good point because even in my world in recruitment, typically the quiet side is around Christmas and New Year, right?
Yep.
And I've always been taught that that's actually the perfect time to go and get your meetings with clients, get your coffees, go for drinks, whatever it is, because usually they're pretty free around that time of the year. And at least in Australia, I think by early to mid December, people are mentally switched off, right? They're just thinking about their holidays or thinking about where they're going. And it kind of doesn't pick up until, 7th, 8th of January, mid January. And then end of Jan, it's like really when it kicks back into gear. So it's true. I think that that's a really good time if you are quiet. Just book in those meetings and get out there and catch up for coffees because Australia is it's one of those places where people do buy off people. It's not overly transactional, I think, compared to some other parts of the world.
100%.
Um, and if you're getting in front of people, it's very important, and they are going to remember you those times where they are looking to buy. So, yeah, I think that's a really great point. So when you're running your workshops and you're speaking with companies and different teams, are there any key themes or key challenges that you see that keep popping up? Are people getting price objections, or is there anything that, yeah, I guess is reoccurring?
Yep. So one of my models is self-confidence is a big one. I think that, when you're like really confident for some reason, call it the law of sales, you see people do extremely well, even when it's not competitive or competitive.
Mm,
Uh, Second part is when you're unconfident, you struggle, right? So I
mm,
focus a lot on that. And I usually do a mind shift. Everyone always says it's competitive or everyone's looking for a cheaper option. In my 20 years, I've never heard anyone say, as a customer, you know what, your price is perfect. Everyone knows you're expensive, and we're humans. I always say that I know I always say this in my little chats in my workshops. When you go to Coles, if Coles have the two same items and one was $2, one was $1, we're naturally going to go for that $1, right? So as buyers and humans, we're the same. So I try not to get caught up on price. And if you're when it comes to the objection of price, which is such a big thing, try and find out why. Like why you're actually expensive and what can you do? Are you going for a wrong different client? Just dig into it. So there's those two frameworks that are really working. And number three is a lot of it's mindset, to be honest with you, is big mindset. And you know, it's in sales, it's 80% mindset, 80% psychology, and then 20% so I'm doing the work. So I'll ask questions to each person about what they're going through. They're all going to come up with different questions. Some might say, I'm just not doing well getting appointments on the phone. And then I find out that they're not confident speaking at that time because they've been rejected a few times.
Like when it comes to sales managers, a lot of the time I'll see a BDM that's worked for a company for a few years and they'll almost automatically get promoted into these sales manager roles. And a lot of the time they're getting promoted based on just tenure that they've been with the company. They perform really well as a BDM. But as you know, managing people and managing salespeople and getting the most out of them is such a different ball game compared to being an individual contributor as well. When you're going into these companies, how are you seeing like are you ever seeing sales managers or sales directors that they themselves need a lot of coaching, a lot of development? The way they're running their teams?
Yeah, 100%. And that could even be business owners. And we're not communicate to people as well. The one thing that I always say honestly is I'll never preach or teach anything I've never done in my own life.
Mm,
And ego could be the biggest destroyer of someone's success. And, if I can see something where that person needs improvement, or say if they're a sales manager, sometimes I'll do it in a sense where, hey, what you can really excel in this part, but you're gonna have to maybe change the way you communicate to your team or the expectations, whatever it is.
mm,
It's definitely a big case, and I'm finding that a lot more sales managers are reaching out, or directors who want to really change and transform. And I always say that I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to look at you and see how we can help you, and ensure that you succeed in that as
mm.
well.
Yeah.
Definitely happens. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's good. And like earlier, we briefly touched on AI and like the role that that's starting to play. And I seem to bring this up with every guest now. But what's your view? Like, what's your take on AI? I guess in general, and more specifically for the freight industry as well.
Man, I love AI, if I'm being honest with you. So I get coaching myself. So I'm a big man of faith, and one of my mentors, he is a big man of faith, but he's got a big coaching business in the States, and he coaches the LA Rams,
Yeah. Wow.
in that space. And we always talk about AI, but AI is something that we're gonna have to integrate with. And I think if you're not integrating with, you're gonna be far behind.
Mm,
It's a great tool. You can definitely use it to your advantage, and that's something that I'm doing a lot of, like, experimenting or testing now within my business. And then once I get that down pad, my future plans is to help other businesses adapt to that technology.
yeah.
It's great. Look, it is honestly, if it can do all the tedious stuff that we don't like to do, like the reports and the pipeline budgets and that, and if you can automate that or get that done by AI, and you can go out there and meet people because people buy off people, it can be such a great tool. And
Yeah.
it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
It's definitely a tool. Is it going to replace all of us and take all of our jobs?
Ah, it's such a. I always say this: if it takes everyone's jobs, who's going to buy anything? We're going to have no money to buy anything. So,
Yeah.
I think there'll come a balance point. You'll see, where basically, we're going through a change. It's like from medieval to the industrial age, right? Where the horse and the cart got disappeared, and you just see
Mm,
opportunity to transform. But I
yeah.
do think if you're not willing to evolve or adapt to the technology, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
And the way I like to communicate it is, like, my mum, she doesn't know how to use a computer. It's the same thing. So if you don't know how to use it,
Mm,
and you're going to be left behind. And but look, if the
yeah.
Terminator happens, we're all gone anyway. So
Yeah.
no need to stress. No need
No
to
point in
stress.
worrying about it.
No
Yeah.
point.
In your view, like what should freight professionals be doing now to to future proof their careers? Is there anything now that they can start adapting into their day to day?
Yeah, definitely. What I would actually be doing is, if I was starting, or even just working in industry, is AI is going to come in, right? But one thing it won't replace is human interaction. And I would want to be one of the best communicators I could be.
Mm,
And that means having the confidence to have a chat like you and I are right now, or in person via text, and
yeah.
also learn to communicate in a language where it suits your customers' needs.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I always say, when you're following up with a customer, people just follow up via email, right? And I'm like, when was the last time you messaged Sam and said, Sam, how would you like me to communicate with you? Is it text, phone, or email? And when's the best time? Now, if I did that, we're going to interact more. You're going to show respect to each other. And I think we don't do enough of these things. And I think if you can make a very great communicator, it doesn't matter what happens in the industry, that's going to be your edge for sure.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think AI, my view, I think it just should be viewed as a tool to make your job more effective and like you say, can do all the some of the mundane tasks, especially the sales. Like salespeople are notorious for being rubbish at doing admin. Like that I find just the hallmark of a good salesperson, they're typically just rubbish at admin. They just don't want to do it. So you could definitely use it for things like that. Ultimately, I don't think it's going to replace human interaction, at least not in our lifetime, right? So maybe
100%.
one day we might all be robots one day, but I don't think that's coming anytime soon. When it comes to people buying, right? So I guess for forwarders or shippers, it might be the importers and exporters. Have you seen expectations change over the last few years at all?
Yeah, definitely. I would say in the last 2 years in particular is there's a lot more knowledgeable importers and exporters. They're very clever. They know just as much as a forwarder now, right? Where before it was the forwarder who had the upper hand with knowledge, because a lot of people have left forwarding and have went into companies. So um, I think that's it's a very very big thing and change that I've seen. So you got to ensure that when you're again presenting to another company, is don't assume they don't know. Don't assume they don't know. And you've got to be a really good you've got to able to ask really good questions and find problems. Like I always say, "Hey, what are three problems you have within your business?" I'm seeing that trend. The other trend that I'm actually seeing, and this is probably the more micro challenges, is that shipping lines are developing their own freight forwarding arms, which is going to become a bit of a challenge for some of the smaller to medium freight forwarders for sure. The way that people are buying as well is they do a lot more research on you than you do on them. So they just know who you are. So that's why that personal branding comes important. So there's definitely a few different factors that I'm definitely seeing, especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, and like I'm always talking about trying to ways to attract new people coming into the industry, right? Because it's a bit of a common theme, especially in the freight industry, that there's just a bit of a skills shortage. It's hard to attract young people because it's not the first industry that they necessarily seek out after graduating from university. Um, if you were like in charge of mentoring a graduate or you had some words of advice for a graduate trying to enter the industry, what advice would you give them coming into this industry?
If you're starting in the industry, what I would actually do is, I know this is going to sound a bit cliche, is before you just go for any job, go for a recruiter like yourself and get some really good advice about like where you want to head in your career, because you can't be the best at everything. So some people will naturally gifted at sales, some be at operations, and I think align with someone who's been there already for sure. And be honest with your personality type, because it's such a very personality driven industry. It doesn't matter with some people, you can't put them into sales. You just can't. It is what it is, right? So just yeah, talk to people and get real advice. And if you're going to give advice, or if I'm going to give advice, I talk about not just the good stuff, but all the bad stuff. It's important that both sides of things. And I do mentor a lot of young guys that come out of university from different states, believe it or not. Um, yeah, so I get a lot of reach out from universities through an online program, and three of my wonderful guys that I worked with, they were in college, and they're working in the industry now. One's at DP World, uh, one at Clarkson's in Perth, and
Nice.
just by providing them trust,
Yeah,
that's what they want, trust, right? So
that's it. Yeah, being open and transparent with people is key, right? But I think also it's such a like I'm biased, but I think it's such a good industry to get into because you've got global opportunities. Like once you do a role here, if you want to move to Dubai, if you want to move to Europe, America, like you can basically pick up your job that you're doing here and go and do it anywhere. And
yeah,
you can't really say that about accountants or lawyers or engineers. Like there's other regulations and qualifications that's needed, right? So it's one of the few very, very global industries. And I think that that's a big selling point. That should be a big selling point for younger people coming through,
Really,
I think.
definitely.
Do you have any actionable tips, right? Like something that a salesperson can literally implement right now or as of today
Mhm.
that you think will improve their results over time?
Yeah, we talked about discipline. I read this book called The Power of One More, and I've always honestly have had that mentality my whole life. So if you're making 10 calls a day, do 11, right?
Mm.
And you'll see that 11th, for some reason, that 11th call is the one that you get.
Yeah.
If you see 5 customers in a week, do 6.
Mm.
And what that compounding effect does, it will actually put you ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful tool, man, to be honest with you.
Mm. And that's across, I think that's across everything, right? Like if you're in the gym, if you're doing 10 reps, do 11 reps.
Yep,
It
100%.
translates across everything.
Yeah. If you do that, say 1 call a day extra, that's 5 calls a week more. So you've almost done half a day if you're doing, 2
Mm.
calls a day. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I would do. And if you're really struggling with business, right? If you're in an environment where you're really, really struggling, have the guts to talk to your manager or your director and saying, hey, can I have a list of maybe all the clients that we've lost in the last 5 years? Reintroduce yourselves, because sometimes,
Mm.
Sam, you're a great bloke, but you don't get along with that customer, and then Johan comes in and gets along well, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And think outside the square. So if it's very quiet, if you've lost, everyone's lost, everyone loses clients, introduce yourself. You
Mm.
change jobs in those companies as well, so they're not going to remember you anyway.
Yeah.
Go there and have that courage to reintroduce yourself.
Mm.
And if you're really struggling with sales, ask for help.
Yeah.
Just ask for help, because
Mm.
nothing is going to change nothing. So just,
Yeah.
whether it's me or you or someone else, just go out there and get some help. Like, don't be
Yeah.
afraid. Don't be afraid to upskill, for sure.
Yeah. No, I love that. And how are you feeling about the second half of this year? And I guess as we head into 2026, are you optimistic, pessimistic, in the middle?
I'm an optimist by trade, so I always look at the brighter side of life. It's the way you see things, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to get challenging for sure. At the end of the day, all you can control is what you do. Like, if you put all the noise about tariffs, and you just got to do your best. Like, if you concentrate on what's happening externally, you're going to get stressed, you're going to get sad. And maybe another thing we should empathize is have a high level of EQ, emotional intelligence.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, the EQ part, that's so important. And that is something that also we do in our business, especially when we're interviewing people. Emotional intelligence is so important, especially in sales related roles. It's, yeah, having people that are self-aware is very, very crucial for sure. No, I love it. Anything else you want to chat about or anything interesting I mean, you're off to Africa doing speaking engagements, which is very, very cool. Anything else on your horizon?
Man, I've always got a lot of projects, to be honest with you. I'm someone that's
Yeah,
always thinking 10 miles ahead. But just
love it.
maybe one little note I think I want to share. If you're a salesperson and you're going to earn a lot of money, the one other practical advice is invest outside your work,
Mm.
because you want to have options. And I find one little thing is that when you're financially good outside of work, for some reason your career will flourish as well. I found that once we paid off our house off, I
Mm.
started getting more business, because you become less desperate, right?
Mm.
Uh, so invest in yourself. Just
Yeah,
have financial goals outside to keep you going,
yeah,
and don't throw your money on cars and all that stuff. They don't get you ahead. So I'm
love it.
I'm very big on that. I'm very big on that, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it's important.
but
Yeah,
Africa, all I'm thinking about, my friend, is Africa. It's going to be
yeah, I
a massive
bet.
change. And now, look, I've got some plans for my career. Blueprint coaching. I'm hoping that I'll grow it well. But I do miss the freight forwarding industry sometimes, if I'm being transparent, especially stepping out and seeing things to do. So I've got a bit of an ideas on. I would never start my own, but there's opportunities to help organizations even further. So one day you
Yeah.
might see me back. I don't know. So you never know what the future holds. So
But they say once you're in for life. So
tough, man. It's
good
tough.
stuff.
It's tough.
Love it. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time coming on. And
Sure.
like I said, it was great to connect because I see you constantly active and all things sales. So it was really great to hear your input and
Thank you.
love the conversation.
I appreciate it. And yeah, if you ever need anything or anyone else needs anything outside, you can just always reach out and happy
Yeah.
to converse and help out. So
Connect with you on LinkedIn as well.
yep, I'm always posting something. So, I'm never shy.
Love it.